All right, so it's time to talk about UFC 317. I'm not going to pick every fight on this card because I don't have a pick for every fight on this card. But I'm just going to talk about the fights that interest me and that I do have a pick for. So apologies for skipping about half of the main card because I don't have a pick for Jack Hermanson versus Gregory Rodriguez or Peyton Talbot versus Felipe Lima. We're going to start with, first off, Jacob Smith is going to beat Nico Price. That's obviously pretty easy work for Jacob Smith. 10-0 young prospect who's looked great in his career so far. He's a negative 1,400 favorite. Price is a plus 800 underdog. The next fight up the card, McKinney versus Borschev. I don't have a pick in it other than that it should end quickly. Probably in a McKinney knockout. So you know what? I guess I will just make that pick. Terrence McKinney by KO over Borschev. That fight's going to end in a KO pretty quickly, though. Those are two guys who like to get at it. And speaking of two guys who'd like to get at it, Hyder Amil and Jose Delgado, this is going to be a very, very entertaining fight. There are a couple things that make this fight close and that make this fight interesting and that make this fight one of the fights I really wanted to talk the most about on this card. Is that first off, Delgado is bigger, he's more underrated, definitely, and Hyder Amil is probably, I don't know, 15 to 12 years older than most casual fans probably think that he is. He's 35. I think there's a lot of casual fans out there that think that Hyder Amil is in his 20s. No, Hyder Amil is 35. I don't know his story. I didn't watch the season of The Ultimate Fighter that he was on, but it seems to me like he was probably one of those fighters who just had trouble finding fights on the regional scene before he got signed to the UFC. And I believe he's 4 or 5-0 in the UFC. He's looked fantastic in all of his UFC fights, and more importantly to most of the fans, he's a very entertaining, forward-moving striker who really provides entertaining fights, entertaining knockouts, and just entertainment. And there's a lot of fans and a lot of UFC hardcore fans who root for Hyder Amil and who are rooting for Hyder Amil. And honestly, I'm one of them, and I'm going to pick him in this fight because I want to see him knock out Jose Delgado. I think there's a pretty decent chance, however, that Delgado can use his range, use his size. He is a Muay Thai guy, and I think that Muay Thai fighters tend to do a little better inside, and that he might end up getting himself trapped inside with a guy like Hyder Amil who's going to hit him with a shot he can't recover from. That would tend to be my pick. I'm not going to talk anymore BS about Muay Thai fighters because they would all kick my ass. And there's a decent chance that Jose Delgado will kick Hyder Amil's ass. You know what? Nah, Amil's not getting his ass kicked. This is going to be a good one. It's either going to be a close Delgado decision or a Hyder Amil KO. That will be my pick for this fight, Hyder Amil by knockout in round 2 or 3. And the next fight I'm going to talk about is Brandon Royval versus Joshua Van. This has very high fight of the night potential. I think a lot of people think this is going to be the fight of the night. I have gone back and forth on this fight. I was very excited to just go in and analyze this fight and try to pick who would win because it really is a true toss-up. There's a lot of factors that could go into this fight. There's just a lot of factors at play here. Royval is a former championship contender. He lost to Pantoja. It's a lot of action-packed fights. It's a lot of high-paced fights. Even for a flyweight, he's got fight of the night. He's got performance of the night up and down his resume. And he's going to make this an action-packed fight, and Joshua Van is going to be very, very ready for that. This is going to be a high-paced, action-packed fight. I absolutely promise you. And I'm actually going to pick Brandon Royval, and I'll tell you why. Brandon Royval's last 2 wins have been by split decision. I think that he can eke out another 3-round split decision here against, actually, his last 2 fights have been 5-round split decisions. They've been main events, right? So it shows you that the UFC thinks that this guy is an entertaining fighter. He's headlined 2 fight nights in a row, and he's gotten split decision wins in both of them. And the thing that pushed me over the line on this matchup that made me actually pick Royval when I initially had Van winning by knockout. And the reason I had Van winning by knockout is because of Royval's previous concussion issues. It's just an unfortunate issue of the sport. You've got Joshua Van, who is a guy who's known to knock people out, against Brandon Royval, who has dealt with issues with his head. So, I mean, you could argue that a guy who suffered multiple concussions shouldn't be fighting. Or should at least be taking a good hard look at his future in the sport. I guess in that way, it is good for Royval's health that it's a 3-round fight. It's going to let him be a little more on the front foot and a little more aggression oriented, and what I'm sure is going to be already a very aggressive fight. But not to put it off any longer, I'm picking Royval specifically because of something that was said at the press conference today. It's never good when a fighter overlooks their current opposition. And now, I could never suggest, I'm not in Joshua Van's head, that he's overlooking the opposition. But just optically, it's never good for a fighter to say that, oh, I'm dreaming of a title shot after this, because that is what Joshua Van said today. He said that he's looking forward to getting a title shot after he beats Royval. And meanwhile, Royval is up here on the mic talking about nobody gives me the respect that I'm due in this division. He just sounds like the kind of fighter who's about to go out there and perform and try to prove people wrong. I think Brandon Royval is going to come into this fight with his hair on fire, at least a lot more on fire than Joshua Van, who fought on the last pay-per-view and is coming off, honestly, a pretty short break. So I think Royval is going to have enough to take this fight. So I'm rather controversially going to pick Brandon Royval specifically by split decision here. And next to the co-main event, Alexandre Pantoja versus Kai Kara-France. And I think the two co-main events here on this card are very similar in that, honestly, in terms of them, these two fights being UFC title defenses for Pantoja and Topuria respectively, to be honest, to me, call me a casual all you want to. To me, for both of them, it's relatively easy work. Kara-France, I'm not going to call him an overhand merchant because also calling somebody an overhand merchant in the flyweight division, he does have more to his game than that. He's lost to Brandon Moreno twice. He's lost to Royval. He lost to Amir Albazi. Volume from him also isn't extraordinary. 2 fights in 22, 1 fight in 23, 1 fight in 24. This might be his only fight of the year. He's obviously got some miles on him as well in terms of just being a veteran fighter, just trying to watch his mileage as somebody with losses in the UFC. So it's understandable that he doesn't fight at the highest volume. So who knows? It could have just been some beast training camp for Kai Kara-France where he, comes out and looks like a totally different fighter and dominates Pantoja. And anything could happen, especially at the championship level. You never know. But to me, on paper, this seems like decently easy work for Alexandre Pantoja, who I think has a decent chance to become one of the better flyweight champions in the history of the UFC. He's been on a very impressive run, definitely the most impressive run at flyweight champion since Demetrius Johnson. And I don't necessarily even think maybe this is the highest level opponent he's faced. I don't know who would... Well, we do know who would win between Brandon Royval and Kai Kara-France. At least the previous version of Brandon Royval would beat Kai Kara-France. So we know that version of Royval was a better fighter, and he couldn't beat Pantoja. Not to break out the old MMA math on you guys. But to me, this is a pretty clear Pantoja win. And don't even get me started on that Kai Kara-France is very susceptible to getting submitted. He's been submitted in the past. So I'm going to take Pantoja by submission in round 4 or 5. If not, it should be a unanimous decision. It'll probably be a decently wide one. I think this is going to be easy work for Pantoja. Call me a casual all you want. With all this talk about me being a casual, I'm definitely spoiling my pick for the main event. Let's get to that. I've got Topuria by round 3 TKO. It could be round 1, let's be honest. Topuria, Oliveira's game plan is going to revolve around keeping the smaller fighter at range, and Topuria is completely expecting that. And he's going to initiate some hellacious exchanges with Oliveira about as early as he can into the fight, right? I think Oliveira is going to weather that storm. I think he's probably going to get out of the first round. He's probably going to try to grapple in the second round. And in the third round, when they get back to the feet, Topuria is going to get another chance to initiate offense, and I don't think Oliveira is going to survive that. Topuria is a tremendous attacking fighter, and above all else, he is a violent finisher, and that's what has given him this run. One of the things about great finishers so often in MMA, and one of the things that makes MMA such a gladiatorial sport in that way, is that it is actually the violence of the finishes that makes you a good finisher. Ilia Topuria is a very violent finisher, and I think that's why a lot of the memes are the way that they are. People love Charles Oliveira. They don't want to see him get finished in the way that we know Ilia Topuria is capable of finishing a fight. And I'm just happening to pick round 3 to be the round where that happens. Oliveira could win this fight in round 4 with some kind of submission if Topuria makes a mistake for the first time in his career. I just don't think that's going to happen. I think that when we look back on this fight, we'll all remember it fondly for the personality matchup of the two fighters. This, up and coming great in Topuria, which me calling him up and coming is insane still at this point, but he may very well still have a lot of work to do against, a humble family man, a veteran in Charles Oliveira, who also has given us so many memories, so many classic fights in the lightweight division. And for that same reason, he provides a great measuring stick for Ilia Topuria at lightweight. And I think that when we look back on Ilia Topuria's career at the end, we're going to remember this as, maybe an easier title defense, right? But if he does win the fight in a dominant way, we're going to say, all those people who counted him out at 155 were dead wrong. Because I think Topuria has every bit of the ability to carry that power over to this weight class. Absolutely no problem. If he says that he was too big for 145, I believe him. And if 155 is his proper weight, then a 35-year-old Charles Oliveira, as great of a fighter as he is not the guy who's going to beat Ilia Topuria. That fighter is someone else.